This is John King. I'm speaking with Montana State Auditor and Insurance Commissioner Monica Lindeen. And I'm calling you because of this whole, I know there were some hearings. There's a lot of discussion. I know I spoke with you earlier. You were I think you told me you were shocked at the rate request by Blue Cross Blue Shield. Anyway, after all of that, what has come of this situation?
Well, if I could just recap for you, all the insurance companies here in Montana that are doing business in the individual health marketplace filed their rates with my office. And yes, I was taken aback by how high Blue Cross Blue Shield's rates were, but I was holding judgment until we had a chance to actually look through their rate filing, which we did line by line also with an outside consultant, an actuary, and obviously had some back and forth with the companies, gave them our recommendations in terms of what we thought that they needed to do. And frankly, we did go back to Blue Cross with our recommendations to lower the rates, and they did lower them a few percentage points, but it was not enough in my opinion. And so when they refiled their rates, these are the final rates now, I made the decision that these were unreasonable.
Now, I understand that I'm sorry if I can't remember the rate numbers exactly. I'm not in your position, luckily. But if I remember, it was something like somewhere between 62 and 68% was where the original rate request was for Blue Cross Blue Shield.
It was about 65%, and then they dropped their rate to about 58%, which, based on our review, is not enough, and so we have found that to be unreasonable.
What were you asking for, though? I mean, what you said that that's
the problem. I can't tell you that until Monday. We gave them our findings that are very detailed, and we asked Blue Cross if we could make those findings public, and they said no, because under Montana law, they get 30 days to respond to my findings. 30 days will be on Monday, and on Monday I can release the details of my findings, which will let people know how much I thought that they should have lowered those rates.
Well, can you tell us if they missed it by a minute or a mile?
They missed it by a little bit, yes.
A little bit?
No, I can't tell you that.
Oh, okay. How about an ounce or a heaping or a? We could probably come up with some baking terminology to get around the law, right? So we don't really know. We don't know how much they're off because you can't tell us, but you know.
I know, and that's why when they refiled the rates with the lower rate than the original filing, I was pleased that we were able to talk them into coming down somewhat, but at the same time, it wasn't enough according to our review, and so we find them to be unreasonable, and now the public knows that. Unfortunately, I do not have the authority to actually reject their rates, and so these will be the final rates for 2017 for Blue Cross Blue Shield.
I so don't understand what your job is then. I mean, if you don't have the authority to reject a rate request, is this all you can do is say we don't like it?
Well, let's remember that up until a couple of years ago, they never even filed their rates with this office. Montana law did not require them to file their rate increases annually with this office. They would just increase their rates on an annual basis to the consumers in Montana. We would hear about it when consumers would start calling with complaints about how high the rates were, thinking that we had some type of authority. Well, we didn't. We didn't even know what they were going to be. When the Montana legislature then a couple of years ago passed a law giving us rate review authority, that for the first time allowed us to look at those rates when they're actually filed in this office. We can look at them in detail. We can go back to the companies with our concerns and suggestions. They can take them or leave them. But as a result of the rate review authority that we have gained, not just in this case, but in some cases over the last few years since we got it, we have been able to get some companies to bring their rates down based on our recommendations. So the point being that we have gotten companies to come down at least somewhat because of our authority. Yes, we cannot reject them, but it's a step in the right direction.
Gotcha. So my understanding is that this is going to a hearing or something, that this might be heard by another body.
No.
This is it. This is the last.
Oh, this is it. I mean, I held 2 public hearings. You have the federal agency, which is called CMS. They have to file the rates with them as well, but I am the regulator for the health insurance companies here in Montana. I still have that state-based regulatory authority, thank goodness, instead of the federal government. And so, until the Montana legislature gives this office more authority to actually reject unreasonable rate increases, this is as much as I can do.
Wow.
However, my message to the public is to remember that these rate increases don't affect everybody by any means. You still have 46% of the population that gets their coverage through employers. The rest get theirs through Medicare and Medicaid. And then we still have about 7% uninsured. So we're talking about 8% of the marketplace. And of that 8%, we have somewhere around a little over 52,000 Montanans who are getting coverage on the marketplace in the individual market. And 85% of those folks are taking advantage of tax credits, which make it affordable. They're not going to be affected. It's the people who aren't getting the tax credits or who are purchasing off the market in the individual marketplace who are affected. So my message to those folks in the individual marketplace is to look at purchasing on the market and look at whether or not they can qualify for tax credits and to shop around with the other 2 carriers.
Now, I know that Blue Cross Blue Shield gets a lot of attention, but if I'm not mistaken, all of the major insurance providers had double-digit increases. Were there negotiations on those with those other providers, and did they reduce any rate requests from the originals?
Well, this year was a very unusual year. The other 2 providers, the Montana Health Co-op and Pacific Source, we actually found their rates to be too low, the ones that they filed originally. And so we went to both of the companies and we said, we think that your original filing will not allow you to be able to cover all of the insurance, your insured's claims, and we think that in both cases we felt they needed to raise their rates a small bit. So the co-op did raise theirs slightly, and they're now sitting at an average rate increase of 30%, and Pacific Source is at an average rate increase of 27%.
Wow.
Yeah.
You do have an odd job. You telling people to
do.
raise rates on us?
Well,
while telling other people not to
rates.
lower the rates. I don't know what's going on anymore.
No, the insurance companies raised your rates. I did not do that.
Well, so they had a lower rate, and you said that basically it was unsustainable if they didn't raise their rate, right?
Okay, would you have liked me to tell them not to raise it and then not be able to pay the claims and go out of business and we're stuck with one carrier?
I just don't understand why they would even do that to themselves.
Well, because they want to stay in business. If they can't pay the claims, they're going to go out of business.
Right. So do you think that they were lowering their rates artificially just to get customers or something?
Yes, they absolutely were, because they didn't know what the other companies had done when they made their original filings.
I see.
And so after they were public and we had the hearings, they even realized that they had gone too low. So they were already asking to say, you know what, we're going to refile our final rates, and they're probably going to be a little bit higher. And we said, yeah, well, you probably need to bring them up just a little bit, because otherwise you're not going to be able to cover your claims. And the one thing that I want to make sure that I'm doing in this office is maintaining competition in this marketplace. And the last thing I want to end up with is one carrier in the Montana marketplace, because then we have no competition, and then that really limits the consumer's choice.
Absolutely. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time, Monica, and thanks for explaining it to us.
Oh, thank you so much. And you have a great weekend, all right?
Have fun with that land board proposal.
All right. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.